Adios! Welcome back to The Singing Samurai. Today is another an Aikido rebuttal video. The focus still being on Rokas from Martial Arts Journey. His martial arts journey, my martial arts journey, the journeying of martial arts. This is the second video in the Steven Segal, Jesse Enkamp thing. I'm sorry, it's really confusing. The second video, the third video, the fourth video. It's another video. And if you were worried that Rokas was going to disappoint on the number of dumb things that he could possibly come up with in a short period of time, fear not. He does not disappoint. I actually thought that he really took the cake with like the whole legal stuff that he said in the last one, but then he says something else really stupid in this one. I can't wait to show you. Okay, so the first clip that I'm going to show you is confusing. I'm confused. It seems as though Rokas is trying to say that finger techniques in Aikido are not commonly studied, which is, again, a presupposition. Maybe in his school they weren't commonly studied, but if Steven Segal is showing them, and then this other guy, Lenny Sly, is showing them, and we at every Q test and Dan test, there are finger techniques in Yoshokai Aikido. I've seen them in Yoshinkan Aikido, I've seen them in Shotokan Aikido. So there's a lot of Aikido schools that do those techniques and seem to focus on them, at least due to the prevalence of seeing those techniques. So I don't know what he's trying to say, except that he's trying to say that they work too, or that they don't. It's really confusing. So here it is.
So now Steven Segal is going into manipulating the fingers, which I did practice myself a little bit in Aikido, but in many Aikido styles you don't practice that. I know Steven Segal taught it a lot, but an interesting thing I do know is that Lenny Sly, a well-known Aikido expert who has his YouTube channel, he used to work as a bouncer, and he told me that manipulating fingers of various people, that it worked out for him brilliantly in bar fight situations.
Okay, so the next series of clips are about footwork, and I'm also still quite confused. Like, he's throwing doubt on things that are not controversial.
In my footwork, it's always like a triangle.
So what Steven is showing here is more or less a traditional Aikido stance, which is said to be adopted from a sword stance.
It's said to be adopted from a sword stance because it is adopted from a sword stance. That's not controversial. It's objective. It's objectively true. It's fact. That's factually true.
And I'm always sliding.
Right.
I don't do this thing that you guys are doing.
Right. Jumping around.
But the sliding of the foot, there's a couple of problems I have about that. Again, it's a traditional way that apparently the samurai used to use of sliding feet versus lifting their feet.
It's not apparently what they did. It's what they did. The samurai did slide their feet instead of lift their feet. I mean, they lifted their feet too. That happened. The thing he's about to say about a field and rocks and holes and stuff, like... But just before we get to that, because that's really good stuff, they slid their feet for a reason. Do you know what the reason is, Rokas? In a sword fight, you can't see the sword. You can't see the sword coming at you. Maybe a flash of light if you're lucky enough, and that's the last thing that you see before you die. If you are waiting to see the sword move, you're going to get cut. You're probably going to die, especially if the guy that's trying to cut you really knows what they're doing. The only thing that you can reliably look at and determine what are they about to do is their hips, their knees, and their feet. Why do you think they wore the big pants that are designed to obscure the hips, the feet, and the knees? Oh, that's why. That's why they did it. And again, it's not controversial. That's why it happened.
But one, I learned the hard way that it's actually not very good for your knees, because as you're sliding the feet, there's friction and tension which goes into your knees and potentially even the hips.
Are you... Okay, so he's trying to apparently make the claim that Aikido is bad for you because we slide our feet, and that can put pressure on the knees and the hips. But again, this is another false dilemma. It's as if to say there are no combat systems that one can study that aren't damaging to the body. All of them are. On one level or another, on one part of the body or another. I'm pretty sure that guys that throw a lot of Muay Thai kicks get busted up knees and ankles, and their foot bones probably get messed up, and their hips are probably pretty sore. I know that my hips and my knees and my ankles are sore sometimes, and then sometimes they're not. And I know that the people that train with us, a lot of them have been training for, well, definitely as long as I have, if not longer. One of the guys in our club has been training since before I was born. And he still does all the techniques that we do. And I'll ask him, maybe his hips and his knees hurt, but he's in his late 60s, 70s, so I imagine they do anyway, because life and gravity and stuff.
And the other thing, you have to take into account the surface that you're fighting on. If it's a dojo, if it's a gym, yeah, you're gonna have a tatami where you're gonna slide through. But if you're in a field where there are a bunch of rocks and holes, if you're sliding the feet, you may bump your feet into many different things. So warning if lifting the feet is not actually more practical.
If you find yourself in a field with rocks and holes in the ground, and it's a wide open field, and someone wants to fight you, and you can't get away in the wide open field, in the middle of nowhere, if you find yourself in that situation, I guess don't slide your feet. But also, the video that he showed, the movie clip of the two samurai, granted I know it's a movie, so it's not real, but did they slide their feet? They jumped around a lot too, because it's a field and it's hilly, and that's probably what happened in a sword fight. I don't think I would slide my feet in a sword fight in a field. I think I would pick them up. But I would try to do it as the least amount possible so as to not telegraph what I'm going to do with a sword. The next series of clips are about what happens if someone tries to kick at you with a front kick, and can you block it and grab it?
This is sword.
Same
You
idea.
kick.
Yeah.
This is sword.
Yep.
My question though is, are you really going to be able to catch that leg this way? Because notice that first Segal is blocking the leg, and only then he's wrapping his arm around it. But a front kick is usually fast. You're just snapping your kick in and out.
Okay, so first of all, if someone is kicking at you like that guy is a professional fighter. If you're in a situation where you're going to be fighting that guy on the street, like, I wouldn't fight that guy. Would I try to grab a professional Muay Thai fighter's leg when he tries to kick me? Absolutely not. I would not try to do that. I don't know why anyone would try to do that. But then Rokas goes on to say this.
But I've actually seen with my own eyes a professional fight where one guy was holding the leg and the other one just knocked him out.
So I'm really confused, because if it can happen in a professional fight with professional fighters, and he's seen it happen, and yes, he's trying to throw doubt on it anyway by saying, but the guy that was grabbing the other guy's leg got knocked out. Okay, but if you're trying to say it's not a legitimate technique for self-defense for like the average person, but you've seen it happen in a professional fight, like, really? Come on, man.
And that's where you see a general problem with Aikido ukes. They're conditioned to leave stuff out there. But generally in Aikido, that's how attacks always stay the same. Either the hand is left out there, or the leg is left out there, and the level of difficulty from the attacker is barely ever raised.
Another presupposition. The general problem with Aikido ukes, I'm just going to say this, it's like beating a dead horse. He has only trained in one school of Aikido, so he doesn't know that that's the case for everyone. And he goes on to say, they never do it up to speed, they never do it under pressure. That's not true. I can say, at least from our association in a test, it's up to speed. There's pressure. I've trained lots of times, many times, countless times with people giving full force, full pressure. Often at the Genyukan, our main dojo in Ann Arbor, Akira Sensei will have us do it slow, and then medium, and then fast, and then he'll say as fast as you can. And people are swinging boken, or thrusting with Jo, or stabbing with the tanto, or punching or kicking as fast as they can. So it's at least not a true statement in our school. Of course, he says most, or generally, right? So he's leaving out options. But still, that being said, he can't make that claim unless he's gone to all of the schools, or majority of the schools, and seen how they do it. He's only gone to his school. So what does he know? Okay, the next one is this weird punch thing that Steven Segal is showing, which, like, I mean, first of all, I'll say, if you punch somebody in the leg there, it hurts. You know, if you've had friends when you were a kid and they wanted to give you a Charlie horse, that's where you punch them, and it hurts. And if you're not a professional Muay Thai fighter, maybe it could be effective. I probably wouldn't punch somebody in the leg, but, like, well, here it is.
So that's an interesting approach. A bunch of questions do rise up for me though. First of all, the leg. If somebody is a good kicker, it's a super fast leg.
If that guy is on the street and he's trying to kick you in that way, don't punch him in the leg. Don't fight that guy. Like, he's creating a false dilemma. He's saying, look at this technique. It's not good if you had this guy do it. Like, okay, I think that a lot of techniques would probably fail from the average person who trains in a martial arts school somewhere against a professional fighter. just based on the math of the hours trained, right? If you're a professional fighter, this is all you do all day long, is you just train to fight, as compared to a dude that goes to class, 2 or 3 times a week for like an hour. And
First question, are you really going to be able to catch it at the right spot at the right time? And it's just
the first question, which is actually the second question, is will you be able to catch it at the right time? Maybe. Like with any other technique in any other situation in any other fight. If I punch you at the wrong time, is it going to miss? Probably. Are you going to hit me then? Yeah, I'll leave myself open. What if I try and kick you and I miss? My timing is off. Is that a problem? Absolutely.
it's flying towards you. Then the next question is, what if you miss?
You miss.
And again, if it's a super hard leg kick and your fist is going directly towards it, are we sure you're not going to collide so bad that it's going to hurt either your knuckles or your wrist?
Okay, again, if that guy's kicking you with that kick, and he's that monstrous dude who's kicking the palm tree, and you try and punch him, yeah, you're probably gonna hurt your arm, your wrist, your shoulder, everything. You're probably gonna get something's gonna break, and then you're gonna get blasted in the rest of your body. It's a bad idea, but how do you know if you kick somebody or you punch somebody in a fight that you're not gonna hurt yourself anyway? What is wrong with this technique as compared to any other punch or kick or technique? You're running the risk of hurting yourself.
So there you go. I guess I'm one of those stupid people.
Yes, you are. You're seeing the light. Rokas is seeing the light. Okay, the next set of clips are him talking about a collection of Aikido techniques and wrist and finger manipulations, and will they work? And so let's see what he has to say.
Yeah. And this is a break.
So this is a collection of a couple of Aikido techniques known as Yubidori and Sankyo, but the real thing which stands out for me here, while I do think these techniques may be effective, my concern is that it's relying on fairly small, fast-moving objects, which is the fingers and the hand.
Okay, what do cops do when they're trying to arrest you? They don't grab your fingers. They might grab your wrist. Probably they're going to grab your elbow or your bicep so that they can get close enough to slide down your hand and grab your wrist or your fingers. And why are they going to do that? Because it's easier to control somebody if you have their fingers, especially if you have them bending in a direction that they're not supposed to bend, and then you can put handcuffs on them. And then once they're handcuffed, they're a lot less threatening. I think cops pressure test this like all the time, especially when they're fighting with somebody that doesn't want to get arrested.
So I guess most people, when they fight, they have their fists, not their fingers. Very few people do karate in the street. There's a question again. If the person has fists, how will you then grab them as fingers?
You won't, because they're fists. So why would you do that technique? Why are you calling into doubt the technique in a situation where it clearly doesn't apply? How does that make the technique less effective? Again, if I'm trying to jab somebody in the mouth and I can't reach them, does that mean that jabbing is bad? Like that punch is bad if I can't hit them with it? Because it's hard to hit somebody in the face if their head's moving? Okay, this is my favorite part. This part coming up, Rokas has some really ridiculous and stupid stuff.
One time somebody pulled a knife on me and he said, okay, now what are you going to do?
One thing I'm a fan of is body language. And in basic 101 body language, whenever somebody's not telling the truth or they're not completely telling the whole picture, the subconscious tendency is to cover your face. And when somebody's making a statement, and if they scratch the nose at the same time and turn the head a little bit away, that is often enough a sign that the truth is not really being told.
According to who? According to what? What source, Rokas, in this body language? Like, if this is true, right? Think about it from this perspective. If it's true that all you have to do is watch for somebody touching their face in a situation where you're trying to find out if they're lying or not, why do we have a court of law where you go up in front of a judge and a jury of your peers and plead your case? Why would we need that? Why don't we just look at the criminals? Well, look at the criminals, the liars, and they touched their nose when they were telling me that? They're lying to me. But the real question is, and this is sad, why is he calling into doubt what Steven Segal is about to say? Why does he call into doubt any of the things that Steven Segal has said? I think it's because he doesn't want you to listen to anybody else say anything about Aikido, especially if it's in conflict with what he's trying to say Aikido is, except for him. Rokas wants to be the expert in all of Aikido, even though he keeps trying to claim, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I don't know, I'm an innocent. But he sure as hell makes a whole lot of claims about what Aikido is, and as though he is an authority on all of Aikido. Why is he calling into doubt Steven Segal? Perhaps because Steven Segal is one of the most famous people still alive related to Aikido. More people on the street likely know who Steven Segal is than O-sensei. So if Rokas can call into doubt anything that Steven Segal says and make him, who is this expert in Aikido, seem like not an expert in Aikido, then it makes Rokas look like he knows more than he actually does. Okay, this next clip about kata and form, it's irritating. It's irritating. I don't necessarily agree with Steven Segal, at least insofar as the way he's being cut in this video and what he's talking about. I don't know, maybe he said something before or after that would clarify what he means. I tend to agree with the statement that it begins and ends with kata. And the reason being is the nature of kata.
Your karate masters say karate begins with kata and ends with kata. I don't believe that, and I don't agree with that.
I'm actually happy Steven Segal just said that. Kata is very much questionable. There's pretty much no proof whatsoever that it actually makes better fighters.
Okay, so where does kata come from? Why does it exist? If it's useless in terms of making people effective at fighting, why does it exist? Where did it come from? How have we proven that it's not effective? Kata comes from cultures steeped in hand-to-hand combat for hundreds, if not thousands of years. In Japan, for instance, when sword schools, the Yagyu sword style, when they had started to adopt the bamboo sword, and the strikes were, still incredibly powerful and incredibly dangerous, to the point where you have to wear armor on your head and armor on your wrists, and even if you got the full brunt of someone striking you, it would still cause damage. And we know this is true because students would go outside of these schools and grab a post and bash their head into the post over and over to build up callus and strength and what have you. I mean, if you're going to be a swordsman, you're going to be a sword fighter, I guess that was, you're going to train in that school. It's a pretty intense way of training. That's what you had to do. Okay. But I'm just pointing this out to say that even with the bamboo sword, the strikes were really powerful. Before that, with a wooden sword, they were deadly. And before that, with a steel sword, even if it was dull, they were deadly. So the one way that you could train endlessly without hurting the person that you want to train with and learning skills that are important to the battlefield, kata. You did kata.
Unfortunately, I have to say that this episode brought up more doubts and questions in me than answers.
I have to say that this episode brought up more questions and doubts in me than answers too. But about you, Rokas. All right, so to sum up, I think that Rokas is a fraud. I don't think that he knows what he's talking about, and I think he knows that. But he's got this platform, and he's popular, and people listen to him because, I don't know, there was just a bunch of people out there that had a hard-on for making Aikido look bad, I suppose. He makes a lot of presuppositions, and we know why that's problematic. He presents a lot of false dilemmas, saying you're going to be in the situation with this really highly trained fighter. There are 1,000 professional MMA fighters registered in the world right now. 1,000. The odds that you're going to come across somebody who is that highly trained on the street are far less than your odds of winning the lottery, getting struck by lightning, or being bitten by a shark. In fact, I think that you could probably have all of those three things happen to you and still have less odds of running into a professional fighter on the street who wants to fight you. Why do people study in combat systems or in martial arts at all? If your reason for studying is because you want to be a badass fighter in a movie, like you see in a movie, I'm sorry, I'm going to burst your bubble. That doesn't exist. In a street fight, you don't know what's going to happen, and if you fight more than one guy, you're probably going to get your ass kicked. And outside of that situation, or unless you want to be a professional fighter, the ultimate thing that I have to say to Rokas and all of the other martial arts YouTube personalities out there is, who cares why somebody is training in what they're training in? If they enjoy it, who cares? You know what's impractical to learn in today's age? How to use a katana, or how to use an English longsword, or how to use a spear, or how to use any of those weapons. Because you know what? We don't carry them anymore. We don't walk around. We're not going to get in a sword fight. There's still very practical systems to study if you were going to get into a sword fight, but you're not going to get into a sword fight. So who cares? Who cares if it's practical or not? If you enjoy it, if it brings you joy, if it brings you happiness, that's really the only reason that you should do it. And I know some people have said that, but then they keep making all these videos about this versus that, and this effectiveness versus that effectiveness, and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? You guys are all just a bunch of assholes. You're all just a bunch of bullies. And why do most of us probably study martial arts? I don't know. At least my situation when I was a kid, I was bullied mercilessly. And I didn't want anyone else to be able to do that. And I wanted to have confidence that I could handle myself. And so I trained in martial arts, and for a really long time. Now, why do I train in martial arts? Because it helps me be a better singer and a better teacher. Hence my thesis. Your reasons change, and the way that you look at things change, and life changes, and there are very few things in life that will bring you lasting joy. And if you find something like Aikido that brings you lasting joy, then you should do that. And it shouldn't matter what some asshole on YouTube says about whether or not it's effective or not in the octagon. Because unless you're trying to get into the octagon, who cares? Okay, thank you very much. Oh.